Greetings and welcome to another episode of High Point, Turning Point, and End Point. Today I'll continue with my assessment of the Jurassic Park series and review Jurassic World, Fallen Kingdom, which I do deem our first official endpoint of a franchise. Fallen Kingdom, or Fallen Franchise, is the point in which the series no longer resembles the predecessors, the previous films in the series. The canon is completely broken, beyond repair. The franchise has passed the point of no return or jumped the proverbial shark, whatever you want to say. Since this is a franchise killing movie, I will approach it a bit differently than most films. First, I will start with the positives. As horrible and damaging as this film is, there are still a few things I did like about it. In particular, the first 7 or so minutes are excellent. The prologue shows a team of mercenaries return to the deserted Jurassic World in the middle of a tropical storm, as one does. And a stormy Isla Nublar is the island at its best for sure, reminds us of the first film. And it starts with an underwater sequence in the Mosor Lagoon, and there's also a heart-pounding chase by Rexy. The prologue, it really just captures the essence of what makes these movies great, Jurassic Park and Jurassic World. And another highlight, I would say, is the Indoraptor itself. This is the first antagonist of a film, dinosaur antagonist, that is not a large theropod like the Spinosaurus or the T-Rex. But the design of this Indoraptor is excellent and nightmarish. Kind of has the claws reminiscent of the raptors, but it has the spikes in the face that kind of reminds me of the Indominus Rex. And even its creation was hinted at in the previous film, Jurassic World, by Hoskins, that they could try to make it Indominus, but a smaller version would be even more deadly and usable, like what we see with the Indoraptor. And it has a very good presence on screen, and I would say it even makes the toy makes a great present. I'll admit there is one more highlight I'd say for this film, and that's Chris Pratt. Just like in Jurassic World, he does a great job of all the action sequences while coming off as confident, capable, yet likable. Not only is he the main hero, I'd say, he really shows that he's the parent of Blue, the raptor. And even though I'm not really a big fan of the whole friendly raptor storyline, Pratt sells it. He makes it work. While watching the footage of him raising Blue, Macy Lockwood, the granddaughter of Benjamin Lockwood, really sees the nurturing side of Owen. So when they do meet, she instinctively or immediately gravitates towards him and trusts him when she's in need of comfort and protection. I think that's one of the highlights of the film for sure. Now, for the negative. I'd say the Dino Protection Agency scenes that basically happen right after the prologue immediately take me out. Anything with like the news coverage, they're just so fake and silly. They're not what you want to see in a dinosaur movie. They don't add anything. They feel artificial and tacked on, forced, whatever you want to say. They just don't work. Beyond that, there's Franklin Webb, who's one of the workers at this agency. And he's supposed to be the comic relief for the film, but it's just annoying. I get he's supposed to be the fish out of water motif. 2 or 3 jokes at his expense might have been funny, but they just beat you over the head with this, and throughout the entire film, he makes the same jokes about how he's not capable of any sort of adventure. And I agree, he's not. Another letdown was Jeff Goldblum. His return as Ian Malcolm. This was heavily used in the marketing that he would be returning, but it really is just nostalgia bait. He doesn't add anything. He really only has a cameo at the beginning and at the end of the film. He has 2 monologues that kind of bookend the narrative, kind of like John Hammond, I suppose. But if you were to remove those from the film, you would lose nothing of substance, truly. Another letdown would be the discount Peter Ludlow and Hoskins. These 2 characters, if you know their names, congratulations. I even forgot them. I just rewatched this film. So, Claire and Owen, I'd say another letdown is how they broke up in between films. And really what it does, it just resets the relationship from Jurassic World back to where they started, to where they're arguing, and they have to fall back in love throughout the film. It's just boring, repetitive. We've already done this. It really undermines their character growth and is just unnecessary. Another letdown would be the Carnotaurus. Not necessarily a bad dinosaur per se in itself. It's just as soon as it appears and it kind of looks a little bit scary, it gets dunked on immediately by Rexy, knocked over, completely embarrassed. And when you realize that this could have been from early drafts, a return of the Spinosaurus that would fight, Tyrannosaurus Rex, I think this is just a huge missed opportunity. That's why it's definitely a big time letdown. Another kind of annoying part of the film would be the new origins of Jurassic Park, where Everything started in the Lockwood mansion. We meet Benjamin Lockwood. His entire storyline is just disjointed. His introduction. I understand he's supposed to be like a surrogate for John Hammond since they can't use, of course, John Hammond anymore. But it comes out of nowhere. There's never been any hint about him or his character at any point in the franchise, and it's just a really add-on, tacked-on storyline that is a non-factor by the end of the film. And I'd say the marketing, too, for Fallen Kingdom was just poor, very deceiving. From the trailers, are led to believe that we would see the end of Jurassic Park, Jurassic World, but also that the dinosaurs would take over the world. We see scenes of the T-Rex roaring at a lion. You see the Mosasaurus stalking surfers in the ocean wave. And all these scenes just happen, are tacked on at the very end, and add nothing to the story. They have nothing to do with the movie. The hints of this being the movie where the dinosaurs take over the planet are kicked off into the next sequel, and it's just a big letdown. But the main thing is destroying Isla Nublar. This just hurts. This really is the end of Jurassic Park as we know it. Now, in the novel Jurassic Park, the island is bombed by the Costa Rican government, so maybe the writers thought they were being clever by lifting something from Michael Crichton's book. And maybe it's the visuals of the volcano exploding that really, too tempting to see exploding volcano on posters and trailers. Molten lava, volcanic ash, which definitely should have cooked Owen Grady. Maybe that was just too tempting to pass up. But concern is new films really ignore Site B, Isla Sorna. Isla Nublar is the heart of these films, or at least it should be. But once that's destroyed, that's it. These movies are just now generic action films that occasionally feature dinosaurs and sometimes giant bugs. It's just a letdown. If they had maybe destroyed the island at the end of the film, where the entire film takes place on Isla Nublar and they have to escape, and by the end it is destroyed, maybe that would have worked. But the island's devastated by 40 minutes into the film, and it really feels as if the story kind of ends there. That the writers just really wanted to get rid of it just to get rid of the island. And the real death knell, I should say, though, is it occurs around a 45, 46-minute mark as Owen and Claire sail away on the mercenary ship. They look back at the dock they had just left and see a Brachiosaurus pitifully stride towards the end of the dock. And it lets out a haunting and melancholy bellow just as it's about to be engulfed by the volcanic ash. And it then strikes its majestic pose from the original film, that kind of where it stands on its back two legs and raises its front legs, and it defiantly, mourned its own death as it's engulfed by the volcanic ash. And really, that's the death of the franchise too. It's just the point where the film truly jumps the shark. In conclusion, though, Fallen Kingdom, it really is just the fall of the franchise. There's no recovering from the damages done by this film narratively, and Dominion proves that. All good things, I understand, do come to an end. And while Fallen Kingdom is the endpoint of this franchise, I understand that the movies will continue, right? The series will continue to limp on for some time, but it never will regain its former glory. I think that's pretty obvious. That it's not going to be these films will never be as good as they once were or could have been potentially. For all intents and purposes, Jurassic Park or Jurassic World, whatever you want to call it, it's dead. And Fallen Kingdom killed it. But don't worry, don't be too forlorn, because next time we will get to talk about, instead of dinosaurs, we'll talk about some giant bugs. And I do apologize for this sort of rant version of High Point, Turning Point, End Point, but this is the end point of the Jurassic Park / World franchise, and I thank you for listening.